A Christmas of violent crime. 2 people are being questioned over the fatal shooting of a woman outside a pub on Merseyside on Christmas Eve. As detectives in Birmingham hunt a gang who stabbed to death a man on a dance floor on Boxing Day. Also tonight, Strike UK, how the Christmas industrial action on the railways hit passengers. Storm USA, more than 60 have now lost their lives in the blizzard of the century. And
in 30 seconds you can turn a boiler flow temperature down here or switch these off there. Change this.
The government ad encouraging us all to save energy.
This is ITV News with Nina Hussain.
Good evening. A 30-year-old man and a 19-year-old woman are still being questioned tonight over the murder of a woman outside a pub on Christmas Eve. Ellie Edwards died shortly after being shot in the head at the pub in Wallasey on Merseyside. Tonight, Merseyside Police Chief Constable Serena Kennedy said her force will be relentless in investigating this sickening and heartbreaking incident which has ruined so many lives. From Wallasey, our North of England reporter Kelly Foran has the latest.
To my beautiful Ellie, you are the light of my life. You will never be gone. The heartbreaking handwritten message from Ellie's mum and dad are among the many tributes being left outside the pub where she was shot and killed.
I've known Ellie since she was very young. We've always lived around the corner, close family members. It's just a total tragedy that shook everyone in Wallasey, mainly New Brighton, where Ellie was from and grew up.
Witnesses say they heard multiple gunshots at the entrance to the pub.
We thought it might have been fireworks or someone knocking on the shutters. But yeah, it was quite frightening.
My son was in there, but a couple of hours beforehand. It's really shocking, it's really upsetting.
The mobile police station has been out in Wallasey today providing support for people living in this village. The shop next door to the pub is preparing to reopen, although things are far from back to normal here.
This is probably the least likely place we'd ever expect it to happen, to be honest, really. It is becoming a worry in the Merseyside now. It seems to spread all over. So it is a worry. Yeah.
Police say a 30-year-old man and a 19-year-old woman are still being questioned. The 2 suspects are from Tranmere and Rock Ferry, both less than 5 miles from the murder scene. And it's a scene where the tributes have been growing by the hour today. There's still a large cordon in place. The roads around the pub are closed off while the police continue to investigate how and why 26-year-old Ellie was killed. The beautician was loved by her friends, and her colleagues at this beauty studio say they're lost for words. Another man is still being treated for his injuries in hospital. Meanwhile, friends of Ellie say her memory will live on. Merseyside police say that since this happened, their officers are working round the clock to disrupt those involved in serious organised crime on the Wirral. They've made 4 further arrests, and the Chief Constable has described those involved in this shooting today as cowards, saying they're using firearms to resolve what they describe as petty and pathetic issues. The police say that they will be relentlessly pursuing those involved in Ellie's murder.
Kelly Foran, thank you. In Birmingham, a 23-year-old man who died after being stabbed on the dance floor of a nightclub has tonight been named as non-league footballer Cody Fisher. His family said in a statement, "They have broken our hearts." Mr Fisher played for teams in Stratford and Bromsgrove. Bromsgrove Sporting said tonight Cody was a friend to many at the club, and we send our deepest condolences to his family and loved ones. Emergency services were called to the Crane nightclub just before midnight on Boxing Day, but Mr Fisher died at the scene. Detectives say he's believed to have been approached by a group before he was stabbed. Train passengers are being warned tonight there is more disruption to come despite the latest strike action officially ending this morning. It took several hours for services to return to normal today, and there are more strike dates planned for next week. Joel Hills is at King's Cross Station in London for us this evening. Joel, this is far from an easy festive period for passengers.
It's not, and the latest walkout by members of the RMT union who work for Network Rail ended at 6 o'clock this morning, but passengers faced delays, setbacks and frustration for several hours. This was the first train to leave London for Edinburgh this morning. The 10:30 service left half an hour late, and as you can see, there was standing room only for many passengers. The advice from Network Rail remains only travel if absolutely necessary for the next 2 weeks. That's because RMT members plan to strike again on the 3rd, 4th, 6th and 7th of January. Meanwhile, train drivers who are members of the ASLEF union will stage a 24-hour walkout on Thursday the 5th of January, and strike action by Tessa on the 28th and 29th of December and the 12th of January will affect Great Western and West Midlands train routes and services on the Elizabeth line in London. In spite of all the disruption though, Tessa insists it still has public opinion on its side.
Rail workers are entering into their 4th year of no pay increase next week, and yet the costs of living are skyrocketing. So everyone understands that, and the public have been very supportive. They want this resolved, and it's in the government's gift to do this. They're the ones that are blocking a deal from being done.
Perhaps unsurprisingly, the government sees this dispute rather differently. A spokesperson told us tonight that a fair and reasonable offer has been made and accepted by 2 unions. It adds the British public deserve better than to have their festive period impacted by strikes. Unless, though, common ground can be found somehow on pay and conditions in the coming days, then severe disruption early in the new year is, I'm afraid, inevitable.
Joel Hills, thank you. Police are searching for a 13-year-old girl from Basingstoke who has been missing since last week. Lila Jane Lake, the cousin of the Olympic high jumper Morgan Lake, was last seen on Wednesday in Simmons Walk at around 10 p.m. In a video posted online, her father Nathan pleaded for information.
Lila, if you're watching this, Daddy loves you so much. If anything's worrying you, it's nothing which can't be sorted. So please just come home. You're not in trouble, you've got hundreds of people who care for you, and we all just want you to come home safe.
North East Ambulance Service has declared a critical incident for the second time in 9 days. The status means it cannot provide usual critical services because of what it called unprecedented pressure. Several ambulance services across England declared critical incidents last week ahead of strikes and the Christmas period. And 3 people are confirmed to have died after a car crash yesterday near Cookstown in Northern Ireland. The drivers of both vehicles, a woman in her 80s and a man in his 20s, died, as well as a passenger in her 50s. 4 children and another woman are in hospital. More than 60 people have now died in a snowstorm that has hit huge areas of America, leaving thousands of people stranded in cars and in homes without power. While the worst of the weather seems to have passed for now, more snow is forecast in the coming days. From the US, our correspondent Robert Moore has the latest.
The great winter storm of the Christmas weekend hit Buffalo the hardest. Hundreds of drivers had to abandon their vehicles and try and make it to safety on their own. This city in upstate New York is familiar with heavy snowfalls. But this was on a scale not seen for many years. Police and emergency workers were simply not able to reach some of those most in need. And the death toll has continued to rise. Some bodies are still being found in stranded cars, others in snowdrifts.
As the snow begins to get moved, and as we see in the week when the snow starts to melt, we fully expect that we are going to recover more bodies. We're pretty certain that there's going to be more deaths uncovered.
In a few cases, looting broke out, with those responsible confident the police wouldn't have the resources to be able to respond.
Did you buy it? I'm trying to buy it. All right, put it back. Put everything back. Come on.
Leaving this store owner trying to defend his business, even as the storm was raging outside.
Looting when people are losing their lives in this harsh winter storm is just absolutely reprehensible. I don't know how these people can even live with themselves, how they can look at themselves in the mirror. They are the lowest of the low.
At its peak, this bomb cyclone, as the weather pattern was called, impacted nearly half of America, on the very weekend when tens of millions of people were trying to gather for the holidays. It led to thousands of flight cancellations and continuing travel chaos, with airlines still struggling to get passengers to their destinations. On the Great Lakes, the icy winds certainly produced some stunning ice and snow formations. But this will be remembered as the storm that left chaos in its wake and disrupted the plans of much of the nation. Robert Moore, ITV News, Washington.
There's also been heavy snow across large areas of Japan where officials say 17 people have died and another 90 have been injured. Powerful winter fronts have hit the north coast of the country since last week, stranding hundreds of vehicles on highways and leaving homes without power. And tourists were evacuated from the ancient city of Petra in Jordan after freak rainfall flooded the archaeological site. Social media footage shows water crashing through the UNESCO World Heritage Site and panicked tourists attempting to flee. Nearly 2,000 people had to leave the area. Back here, an £18 million government campaign launched today that tells people that switching off lights could help them save money. The idea was one that was originally blocked by the then Prime Minister Liz Truss. A TV advert says little things all add up, but critics say the money could be better spent on direct help for families who are battling the cost of living crisis. Here's our political reporter, Amy Lewis.
This is a 30-second ad. That's not long, but it's long enough to do something that could save you money on your energy bills.
As Christmas viewing goes, it might not be the most festive, but this advert could, perhaps, help you become more frugal.
Change this, reduce that.
The government is spending millions to try and get us to use and spend less on our energy.
Definitely turn that off. What? I unplugged that.
And they're making every effort to be seen to set an example.
This winter, there are a number of different things we can do to lower our bills and keep our homes warmer, like switching off appliances at the wall, reducing the boiler flow temperature, and using low-cost draft protection.
This year saw energy bills reach a record high after Russia restricted energy supplies following its invasion of Ukraine. In response, the government introduced its energy price guarantee, which until April caps typical annual household bills at £2,500. But the launch of an £18 million public information campaign was blocked in October by the then Prime Minister Liz Truss, who opposed so-called nanny state intervention. But the ad has finally aired.
Telling people to turn down their heating and close off drafts is pretty much common sense.
What do you think the government should be doing to help people with their energy bills?
Well, the government should have been further ahead with making sure that we are energy secure in this country. They should have been insulating homes, had a far-reaching home insulation programme. They should have had targeted help with warm homes discounts.
I'll close all of these at night.
With many facing rising bills again next year, critics argue the government should be using its energy and money elsewhere. Amy Lewis, ITV News.
And finally, how about this for an unexpected moment on a cricket field?
Let's have a look at this, Flem. Here comes the camera. Nortje walking quietly to his spot. Bang!
Ouch, that's South African bowler Anrich Nortje being hit by a TV camera during his team's test match against Australia in Melbourne. This was the view from the camera itself. Luckily, Nortje wasn't seriously hurt and the broadcaster later apologised. I'll be back at 10. Until then, bye-bye.